What's going on, sports fans? Once again, it's K2 the GOAT for Vernon Speak Sports, mostly talking about Auburn football and the rest of the SEC. Want to give a shout out to my fearless and true gang, War Eagle. Wanted to hit a real quick recruiting video before the spring practice starts so we can analyze some of the guys that Auburn does have coming in, some of the needs that were addressed. And some of the, this recruiting class wasn't necessarily what I would like to call a home run, but it was a very effective recruiting class and a very quality recruiting class, considering a lot of diversity. If you look at film on a lot of these guys, they're very diverse in their skill set. As a matter of fact, there's one particular guy that played receiver and defensive end, which could translate, let's just say he does play defensive end. I mean, he's definitely going to have quick feet, very instinctive in that area. So a very, very high quality, I feel very diverse group of guys that can play, that can fill in some gaps in multiple positions and help leverage depth going into the 2019 season, as Auburn has obviously a solid defensive line coming back with Derek Brown returning. Got some question marks at the linebacker position that the recruiting class could help to solve, and definitely can continue to have leverage in that secondary. Auburn did a great job of recruiting some guys that could be contributors in the secondary. And number one, Owen Pappoe was obviously one of the best linebackers recruited in the country. Auburn absolutely had to have this guy. He has great range, high level of instincts to attack the football, both in the interior of the ball of the line of scrimmage, and he has a lot of range outside of the line of scrimmage, something that Auburn hasn't had the privilege of having in years past. I think Owen Pappoe is definitely going to give Auburn that speed and that instinct and that ability to make some of the high level plays that the linebackers here in recent history, like Chris Frost, just couldn't make some of those plays. Deshaun Davis just couldn't make some of those plays. I think the combination of Owen Pappoe, KJ Britt, and Michael Harris, they will have the skills, and Zacoby will really have that skill set to make those elite plays that are going to be necessary in the SEC, i.e. the game-costing drive part of the game-costing drive in LSU when Deshaun Davis, just couldn't make the deflection in the intermediate route that led to a touchdown for LSU. Those are the types of plays that the linebacker position will have to make, and I feel like Owen Pappoe is the perfect guy to add that kind of athletic leverage to the linebacking core. Now, Bo Nix at quarterback. The thing that makes him so special is Bo Nix is a legit dual threat quarterback who can really, really throw the football. The good thing that I like about him, and I think that's why most fans, although they can't understand why, but he shows such a great command and leadership on the football field with his posture, with his ingenuity, with his willingness to sacrifice himself on a lot of occasions to make plays. And I think that's something that's going to really bode well for him. And what's going to be beneficial for him is that he's an early enrollee, and that he will be able to go through spring practice and possibly push for either a second string or maybe even the starting position, having that advantage of coming on campus early. Now, a guy that I also really like that's going to really help add some leverage to the secondary is Zion Puckett. As a safety, I really like his eyes and his focus. He's not easily distracted by juke moves. He knows how to zero in and make really aggressive tackles. Now, he did do he has decent ball skills on offense, but Zion Puckett will more than likely help leverage the secondary out. Now, with everything that's coming back in the secondary, that is actually pretty deep secondary-wise, there's a good chance that Zion Puckett will take advantage of the 4-game rule and actually redshirt this year. I can see that happening. One guy that I really liked on film to help leverage Auburn's defensive line is Derek Hall. Now, the funny part, he's the guy that I was talking about earlier. The thing about Derek Hall that's so unique is that he's played you see him on film, he plays everywhere. He played receiver, He lines up at the linebacker position when they run that 4-3 set. My favorite part, though, is seeing Derek Hall and how he could possibly play the buck linebacker position at Auburn. I really like his ball skills at the point of attack. One thing that's very good about Derek Hall, and as to why he could be an immediate impact player, is that he has very quick interior vision. Now, it's really hard as a defensive end to be able to fight through linemen and still be able to effectively square up with the running back at the point of attack. He's very, very good at that. If you look at him on film, he's not easily distracted by offensive line movement. He does a great job of dissecting blocks very quickly and exploding to the football. So I think he's going to be an immediate impact player. Would be kind of surprised if he emerges quickly. He might actually get enough playing time to not have to redshirt. Now, I've already talked about Cameron Kelly, a very good recruit for Auburn, actually stretched their recruiting efforts geographically up to Virginia in picking up Cameron Kelly, a very, very versatile athlete, a very coveted athlete in his area, Chesapeake, Virginia, near Hampton, Virginia. And he was recruited heavily by Virginia Tech, but decided to flip to Auburn. I did a video on DJ Williams already, who was a late bloomer in the recruiting world. He probably is actually there's just not enough body of work on him to really give him that extra star and those extra ratings. But he came on very, very late, decommitted from Appalachian State to come to Auburn, and I think he's going to be a very, very good asset in Auburn. Now, also out of Gwinnett County, you have Kobe Wooten. Kobe Wooten has a lot of upside. One thing I like about Kobe is he has a very nice first step. And he does a great job of disarming offensive linemen with his first step. He's very quick on that first step. And he has great follow-through. He likes to play the ball all the way to the end of the play. He has great work ethic on the football field. And he has long arms, which helps leverage him in making those plays where you got to stretch out. You see that in Derek Brown, where you stretch out and give yourself up to make that play to keep that quarterback from getting long yards when they start to scramble. Now, I think that will help him, earn a possible spot as far as he's definitely going to be a reserve at best this year. I could even see Kobe Wooten, with all the depth that's coming back at the defensive end position, I can see Kobe Wooten redshirting as well. He does have some. He probably needs to gain just a little bit of weight. I actually had the privilege of seeing him in person. Hell, I thought he was, at first glance, he looked like he was, going to be playing basketball for Auburn. I think he just needs to gain a little bit more weight, and I do think he could benefit from developing a little bit more of a killer instinct on the football field, have a little bit more dog in him, so he can really compete for that defensive end / maybe buck linebacker position. Moving forward, I like the tight end recruit. Tyler Fromm, in my opinion, is very Sal Cannella-ish. When you look at him on film, he likes to line up at that slot receiver, even at that wide receiver position. He's very good at running routes, which will help to leverage Auburn at the receiver position. I didn't see enough body of work from Tyler Fromm to actually say whether he has the blocking skills that will translate into a high-level tight end in the SEC. That is yet to be seen. He didn't play his senior year. He spent most of the year injured. So we didn't get a chance to see whether, we don't see a lot of footage at the line of scrimmage where he's in a down position, where he's in a offensive line stance and has to go from an offensive line stance to making blocks and possibly sliding off and making catches. Unlike Luke Deal, I really am a huge fan of Luke Deal. Out of all the tight end recruits, the two tight end recruits, I think Luke Deal shows that traditional physicality that you need in the SEC. Tyler Fromm has more finesse than Luke Deal, but at the same time, Luke Deal is very athletic and can create some mismatches. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Isaac Nauta out of Georgia on film because of his aggressive ability to block, and he has the ability to find creases and create mismatches with the interior linebackers. I think this Luke Deal is an incredible signee for the Auburn Tigers. Charles Moore, a linebacker out of Mississippi. A defensive lineman out of Mississippi. Auburn absolutely had to have this young man to solidify a solid recruiting class. He could impact immediately either interior or exterior defensively. Very good at quickly attacking and has great ingenuity. When you look at this guy, he out of all the defensive linemen, he appears to be not only the most athletic, but the most ingenuity. He's going to find a way to get to the football vertically, and he doesn't take a lot of missteps. His steps are really guided towards getting to the quarterback, which could be an immediate compliment to the defensive line that we have coming back, that Auburn has coming back. I really think this is a guy out of all the defensive linemen, I believe he has the ability to make an immediate impact and be in the rotation defensive line-wise, which will be very important, especially in the middle of the season when Auburn begins the SEC stretch. Now, probably the best athlete overall, and in my honest opinion, this pickup makes up kind of sort of for losing George Pickens, and that's Mark Anthony Richards. One thing about Mark Anthony is he's so diverse. He can play multiple positions. I've seen him at receiver, seen him, a lot at running back. One thing I like about his running skills is that his eyes are very vertical. All of his moves translates into a vertical move upfield, and he's compared to Keiondre Johnson. I think he's compared to Keiondre Johnson because of the versatility and what he's able to do. But when it comes to actually physicality and speed, I honestly think he's more agile and he has way better hip movement than what Keiondre Johnson brought to the table as an Auburn Tiger, now plays for the Detroit Lions. I think you're going to get a lot more elite running back play out of Mark Anthony Richards than Keiondre Johnson because he just has such explosiveness. Keiondre Johnson didn't have that downfield speed because a lot of times with Keiondre Johnson, because of he just doesn't have long range speed, usually winds up getting pushed out of bounds or having to fend defenders off. I think once Mark Anthony Richards gets into the open field, he's gone. All right, so I think this is a really good pickup. Definitely supplements losing George Pickens. Will be a huge asset to the Auburn backfield. May not play immediately, may even redshirt. But if he can have a strong spring, he could really, really make an impact on the backfield and would be a very, very nice project for Carnell Williams to work on as the new running back coach. Keiondre Jones. I really like Keiondre Jones. He's out of Colquitt County in Moultrie, Georgia. Yes, he will be a very good offensive lineman, very aggressive, and shows, great physicality. I think of all the offensive linemen, I think he has the best overall ability impact-wise. I think he's very athletic. He has good hand movements at the point of attack. And, Keiondre Jones was definitely a huge pickup. And I'm sorry, Keiondre Jones is out of Callaway High School in Hogansville, Georgia, which is rest in between Atlanta and Auburn. So very right up the road recruit, a small town right in the middle of nowhere, Georgia, picking up Keiondre Jones, who almost a couple of tenths of a point away from being a 5-star athlete. He's very big. He's 6'4", 341 pounds. And I think out of all the linemen that were recruited, he's very physical, obviously, at the point of attack. And he uses, when I look at Justin Osborne, one of the other offensive line recruits, Justin Osborne shows a lot of unnecessary aggressiveness at the end of the play when the play is already in hand. The difference is Keiondre Jones has a lot more upfront aggression, which could allow him to be, this year, Keiondre Jones could really be somewhat in the rotation. He's going to have to work pretty hard because there are a lot of guys already ahead of him, and JB Grimes is going to definitely coach these guys up. But he definitely has a chance to really, really make some noise as possibly pushing for a reserve spot. But I really believe all the offensive linemen who are recruited this year will more than likely be redshirted because there's so much depth at the offensive line position. Now, unlike what media outlets would, lead you to believe that Auburn is in trouble, offensively, on the offensive line, I just don't believe that's totally true. Last but not least, we have a couple of other guys that we could talk about. Octavias Brothers, obviously a great linebacker out of Florida. Definitely will help leverage out the linebacker position, which Auburn, I can tell based on the recruiting efforts, Auburn is really pushing for more athleticism at that linebacker position than they've had in years past, because on the defensive side of the ball, honestly, that has been the Achilles heel at times, because Auburn relied way too much on safety help to help leverage out the athleticism of the linebackers. And Cameron Brown, who is Derek Brown's brother, I think Cameron Brown has a lot of upside. I think he is going to come in with a lot to prove. He wasn't heavily recruited, a 3-star athlete out of Gwinnett County, Lanier, Beaufort, Georgia, Lanier High School in Beaufort, Georgia. He plays in a very competitive area of Georgia, which means his skill set is legit. One thing Cameron Brown will have to do is his closing speed from tackle to tackle will have to improve. Also, at worst, he will redshirt this year. I think he could benefit from gaining probably about 15 to 20 solid pounds. He already has a large frame, so he doesn't want to gain too much because he will start to lose, some of his athleticism at the point of attack. And looking at transfers, J.J. Wilson, looking at him on film, he played for Arizona State. I'm just not really thoroughly impressed with J.J. Wilson. I really think at best he will come on and be somewhat of a reserve at that H-back position. I'm really big on Harold Joyner and the possibility of even Luke Deal fighting for that H-back position. I just wasn't thoroughly impressed with what I saw on film with J.J. Wilson. Comes off very, very lazy at times, doesn't attack the football, just really, really not a home run transfer in my honest opinion. Auburn did a very good job at their recruiting efforts this year. I think that's going to translate very nicely into the regular season. Definitely got some of the elite athletes that they needed in certain positions. You could look for in 2020 for Auburn to have. You already see the trend already starting to recruit some of those elite offensive linemen, which will help fill some gaps moving forward. All in all, a very successful recruiting class for the Auburn Tigers. Once again, it's Case to the GOAT for Vernon Speak Sports, mostly talking about Auburn Tigers and the rest of the SEC. Like, comment, and subscribe. You all take care.